step this way for the Spanish Inquisition. Just a little coffee talk, okay, like butter.
And now, broadcasting live on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network, this is Elevation 5280 Sports with Matt Mascarenhas.
Want me to invite Matt?
Yeah, the whole gang. Matt included.
The Denver freaking Nuggets are the number one seed in the Western Conference, and they are coming for that you-know-what. There is nothing that can stop this team. Strap in with me. It is time to watch a Denver Nuggets championship run.
And Michael Spillin.
All work and no play makes Michael a dull boy.
Yeah, I'm excited for this Denver Nuggets playoff push. I'm excited for the rest of the season, but Matt, they cannot be losing to teams like Orlando on the road, like Memphis on the road, but I'm excited either way, and it is going to be a fantastic finish. They are almost in the exact same championship window the Avs were in last year. And speaking of the Avs, do not count them out just yet.
Matt's an okay dude, but he's a dummy.
Michael!
Oh, that's funny. Michael!
Now, Matt and Michael are on.
Yes, and welcome back into it here on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. We are Elevation 5280 Sports. Matt Mascarenhas, Michael Spillin with you on this Sunday morning. As always, a lot on the docket we will get to this morning, as it was a NFL frenzy this last week, Matt. Absolutely crazy in the NFL. We'll talk about all the trades and releases. The number one pick is on its way to another team. That didn't take long. And knowing that team, no matter what pick they had, they would have messed it up. We'll also get into the playoff pushes by both the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. And also, hopefully, Matt, we will bring back the re-premiere of This Date in Jerseys. We're going to have to hold off on Fire and Ice until maybe next week. But hopefully the re-premiere of This Date in Jerseys comes your way at the end of the show. And make sure you like and follow and subscribe to all the socials. Elevation 5280 Sports on Facebook, the Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook. Follow us individually on Twitter. Matt is on there at Matt Mascarenhas1. That's not an L. That's a 1 if you're watching. And I am at Michael Spillin. And follow the Instagram page for Rocky Mountain Sports Network at Rocky Mountain MTNSN. Follow them on Twitter as well, or I should say us on Twitter as well, RM Sports Network. Matt, did the time change mess you up as much as it did me?
Yes. Well, I don't know if it messed me up as much, but I woke up and I was a little kind of when I start to, get ready to go, and I'm thinking it's a certain time because we don't change the clocks. I don't know if anybody does that. There might be some responsible people that look forward to a time change, and we got to set the clocks ahead the night before and whatnot. I'm sure there's a lot of people. Maybe we're the only ones, Mike. Maybe we're the only irresponsible ones that don't do that. But you look at the clock, and I'm thinking, man, it's 4:00, and that's usually normal time I wake up, and then I realize, I look at my phone, get going, and it's like, oh no, it's 5:00, and it kind of got the day rolling for me. But yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people are screwed up today in some way, shape, or form because of the time change.
Yeah, I don't think many people have to do it anymore because their phones just. Is there such thing as an alarm clock anymore? Are those things not flying off the shelves anymore?
See, I don't know. I think there's with the Alexa, and I should be quiet because she's going to hear me in the other room and start playing something. With all that stuff and the advancements of all that crap, I think that the alarm clocks might be going away. I still have one. I had to put it away because my kid kept turning it on. That's the only reason why it's put away. But I still had an alarm clock for the longest time. But yeah, I guess you're right. Your phone, huh? I mean, I was talking to there's microwaves and refrigerators and stuff now that reset on their own too. So who knows? Maybe we're old. Maybe we're old.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling.
We're manually changing the time. Look at us.
The alarm clock went off at 6:45. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get up and get prepared for this. No, it didn't happen. Did not happen one bit. But we got a lot to get into today, Matt. Like we mentioned, the NFL release and trade frenzy this last week. Maybe the biggest one was the Chicago Bears trade the number 1 overall pick this season for this draft to the Carolina Panthers, although the Bears didn't move far down the draft board as they get the number 9 pick this year and the number 61 pick this year, as well as a first-round pick next year. And I forgot the other one. Plus, wide receiver DJ Moore joins the wide receiver core for Justin Fields in Chicago. He'll join the likes right now of Chase Claypool and that receiver group. We'll see if they hang on to Claypool. Didn't really put up the gaudy numbers he once did in Pittsburgh, but still a nice young piece. Their starting position group, running back, wide receivers, and Justin Fields, all under the age of 27. So they are a pretty young nucleus if the Bears were to, hang on to these guys. What did you make of the Bears trading the number 1 pick?
I mean, I'm not shocked they did it because a quarterback's going to go 1-2 this year. That's just the way it looks. And I don't think the Bears were going to upset the apple cart in that sense and, go take a offensive tackle or that number 1 player in the that's looked at in the draft. What is that DN from, is he a D tackle from Georgia, I think, isn't he? But I don't think they were going to go that route, so I think that they looked at it as a quarterback, go there, and then they get a load, like you mentioned, a load for a young team to get even younger and build. It's the Bears, and it sounds like on paper, like you said there, like all those tools and all the firepower that they have there on paper, but it's the freaking Bears still. They're still searching for the quarterback. Nobody's saying that Fields is the guy, so they're just acquiring more picks. And I'm curious to see if they're going to stay at 9 or if they're even going to drop down more and get more picks. I don't know. And they could be setting up with getting all these picks for next season, because next season you're going to get you're going to get Caleb Williams coming out of the draft, So they could be setting up for that, in anticipation for that. And Carolina on the other side of it, they could be doing the same thing as well, because they're even saying that they might even want to trade out of that position also. So they wanted to control the draft is what Carolina said. So it was really interesting to see how all that went down. And then now it's not even for sure, because usually typically they make those moves to get, that's because they got a guy that they're targeting there that they're going to get. And at this point, it could be either one of the two, Shroud or Young. So it's just really, really, really interesting to me how this is shaking down. And it's exciting. I think it's exciting because Carolina could trade it again.
And they might. Who knows? There were already reports coming out that Carolina was looking to trade it already. Don't know the solidity of those reports, but usually when there's smoke, there's fire. So we'll see what happens with Carolina hanging on to that number 1 overall. And let's face it, Matt, they need a quarterback anyway. They're
right.
Even at the number 9 pick, even if they weren't going to trade that pick, they probably would have taken a quarterback in the top 10, whether they stayed at number 9 or whether they use this number 1 overall pick. They need a quarterback. Baker's not there anymore, obviously. Sam Darnold, I don't think has ever been the answer. Right. Ever since he admitted to hearing footsteps, Matt, Sam Darnold has been on the decline ever since he said that. The hot mics caught him on the sideline saying that to his teammates. So, yeah, they need a quarterback, and they will. I think they would have drafted one even at number 9. They probably would have reached for one that maybe wasn't predicted to be in the top 10. There was a lot of releases, Matt, for all these teams. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All these teams to save cap space. And, well, the Broncos saved about $30 million in cap space, releasing running back Chase Edmonds, who only played 5 games for the Broncos last season, Matt. He is now no longer a Denver Bronco. He came over from Miami in the Bradley Chubb trade. They also released offensive lineman Graham Glasgow, which, let's face it, he had his struggles, not only blocking, but staying healthy. And it was just not a good season coming over from Detroit. And, a couple seasons on the Broncos now, and he just wasn't in the mix going forward. And then finally, Ronald Darby He had $12 million against the cap, Matt. So he is now off the Denver Broncos as well. These were all moves, Matt. If you're even if you're a casual Denver Broncos fan, don't really know, don't just go to games, maybe watch games, don't really look at the depth chart or, look at the roster construction. You're like, I didn't even know these dudes were on the team anyway, but they are now not on the team. What did you make of the Paytons and the Broncos getting rid of these guys, saying, two-part question. What did you make of these releases by the Broncos? And what do you think they're going to do with the extra $30 million in cap space?
It was kind of like again, like the coaching staff, like folks were sitting there like, are they going to do anything? Are they going to do anything? And then all of a sudden here comes all these rash of releases. Yeah. The Glasgow one, I think when he came in, it was just to have numbers, a backup guy that can come in and spot start in situations. And he ended up almost starting immediately because of how bad that offensive line was. And that was just I wish we could have seen what it was supposed to look like. That was like a depth move and a guy you can put in here, put in there that can cover kind of those three positions in the center of the line, in the middle of the line. So that was unfortunate because we didn't really get to see how that was supposed to look. But he came in, did what he needed to do, played center, but I think he played both guard positions if I'm not mistaken. But he was good there. And but it was like you said, it was just when you're asking that guy to come in and start as much as coming from what he did in Detroit, ask him to do all that, it's what you're gonna get. It's what you got. The Darby one, Edmonds really didn't get his a foot in here and really do anything. So I don't even think I don't even know if he got any offensive. I feel like he got a couple. And some people were saying that, he could look good in this Payton system. He can be that scat back, that back out of the backfield kind of situation. But obviously that, there's still possibilities they can sign him again. But I don't know why you would release him and do that. So anyway, with him, you didn't really get to see him. And I know with Darby is probably the biggest one that you're going to see affect the field, being on the field, because he was good. He was a good defender. He was a good defensive back and just couldn't stay healthy. Dude was always injured. So, best ability is availability, right? So I think with him, that was just that was a big deal there. But I think they're going to go heavy on offensive line and hell, they might even make a play at one of these running backs, man. They might do that going forward. I'm excited though. I'm really excited because they clear all this money and then they get loaded. And then there's still talks, that Sutton's on the block or potentially on the block. And there's still a lot of moves that can make this cap even more money to play with. So I'm interested to see how this goes, but I can't imagine it won't be on the offensive line, right?
You would hope that's where this money would be targeted. And then if they were able to trade Courtland Sutton, or if they wanted to trade Courtland Sutton, that wipes out a huge chunk as well. I even saw Judy's name in potential trade talks. And that's crazy to me because he was your best offensive player last year. But not only bailed Russ on a couple plays, but made Russ maybe look better than he was last season as well. And let's face it, 2 seasons ago, Judy had 1 touchdown, was it? 2 touchdowns the whole entire season.
Yeah,
and
it was bad, yeah.
Yeah, he and maybe playing out of position this year more in the comfortability that we need to see Judy play in. But Courtland Sutton and hopefully you see Tim Patrick come back at full strength this season as well. Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, let's not forget, Matt, got contract extensions, a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And so how about this, Matt? Since then, Courtland Sutton only has, I think I saw 2 touchdowns in 22 games since the contract extension. Not only 2 touchdowns in that time frame, Matt, but he's only played in 22 games because of injuries. Right.
And it's the same thing with him. Availability is the best ability. And when he got back, it was odd because you saw what he did with Keenum. And you can say he was, helping that dude out. And we thought it was the next coming of DT with him. And then I don't know if it's mentally or he just has not developed. He hit a plateau and you can even throw it at coaching too. Cause there's, that dude that was here, he's gone now. He's over there in with the Jets, but there was no step up. There was no it was just he stopped, and now he's regressed with Sutton. So I don't know if it's the knee or whatever it is, something mentally. He puts the tweet out, I just want to be where I'm wanted, or whatever it said. So yeah, I think there's some stuff going on there with Sutton that and everybody, you mentioned Tim Patrick, everybody keeps forgetting about this dude, what this dude can do and what he has done. And it was just very unfortunate with that injury. I think it could have been a lot different last season if we didn't get injured. Same thing with KJ Hamler. But again, you're going to the availability, best ability. Again, I said that a bunch of times a day, but that's where it's looking at with this receiving core. And, I wouldn't be shocked if there's not a lot of holdovers left, though, right? If all these guys get traded, you know what I mean? Judy, Sutton, there could be the whole. I don't think that's going to happen, but Peyton, Sean Payton's probably looking at it like, man, I just don't know what to do with these guys because they're so inconsistent.
Yeah, and you hope, and like I said, you hope Tim Patrick comes back at full strength. You hope that if Sutton were to remain on the team, hopefully he's 100% healthy. KJ Hamler, the same thing. I mean, there were so many guys that were knocked out and hurt. The only consistent guy last season, Matt, was Jerry Jeudy. So when you have only really one guy, at least one viable option at wide receiver, you're not going to win. You're not going to win very many games. And so you hope this receiving core comes back and is at full strength for not only themselves, Matt, to have bounce back seasons and for the Denver Broncos to succeed, but there's been a lot of talk, Matt, that this could be one and done season for Russell Wilson teamed up with Sean Payton. And I mentioned this the last couple of weeks, Matt. There's something in his contract where they can get rid of him, and it's not going to be a huge hit to the cap. So this is, I mean, this is a guy, and I heard this discussion on one of the local radio stations here in Denver, Matt, and that is if Russ does not perform this season and has a season similar to last, he's played his way out of Hall of Fame discussion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because
not only
Hall of Fame, there is some longevity. I mean, you look at the difference, like for example, Terrell Davis. There was that whole debate with, was he around long enough to cement himself in Hall of Fame? Well, there is that also thing too, where you're around long enough to play yourself out, to not even be up in that category because you were still in the league and in the way you played and how, when you go, it's everything that he's done to this point, and then he can't get it done on the field would kill his Hall of Fame candidacy. Yeah, I 100% believe that. 100% believe that. And it's a make or break. It's a gut check year for Russell Wilson. Like you mentioned, I don't think Sean Payton, because there was even rumors, there was talks before Sean Payton got here that he was half and half on Russell Wilson. And I think that the verbiage and the thing in his contract that for after next season that you can get out of that contract might have looked at Sean Payton like, okay, well, if this guy sucks and he does what he's doing again this season that he did last year, well, then there's a plan, there's a way to get out of that the next season. So I'm going to prepare this team for the future. In a sense, that's what there's even, I noticed on Twitter, there's even talk about guys trading all kinds of players to get perceived magic bean draft picks. So from teams that could be higher up to get that number one pick. But so there's all that going on, and that could be, Sean Payton's in the back of his mind, master plan, but you want to succeed with Russell Wilson. Like, you want plan A to succeed. You want this guy to be right. So you don't have to worry about all that. So you can just plug in the basic holes and roll with him. But for sure, man, I agree 100% that Hall of Fame candidacy could take a big hit if he has another season like he had last year and doesn't bounce back in some way. I hope it's the other way and he has like a comeback year and he's an MVP candidate. But man, I don't know. That's a good, interesting conversation though, for sure.
Yeah, and I wasn't even thinking about that. That wasn't even in the back of my mind, Matt. That wasn't even on the back burner. That the first 9 years of Russell Wilson's career, let's face it, went to a Super Bowl in his second year.
Mhm.
and won and beat the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl. So that's just crazy to think about. The first 9 years, you're almost a shoe-in the Hall of Fame. 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl ring. Basically holds every single Seattle Seahawks franchise record at the quarterback position, and then have at least one bad year in a new city on the Denver Broncos, but then to have 2 bad years and playing your way out of the Hall of Fame is just it's crazy. And I would have disagreed like someone playing their way out of the Hall of Fame, because if you're a Hall of Fame player the first 9 years, if you were going to be a shoe-in the Hall of Fame the first 9 years, then what does year 10 and year 11 have to really do with anything? Like how I mean, if they're saying you're a Hall of Fame player, a shoe-in the Hall of Fame your first 9 years, and you have a bad year 10 and 11, how are you playing your way out of the Hall of Fame if people are already calling you a Hall of Fame your first 9 years? You just had a bad spell, maybe? I don't know. I want to say I disagree with it. I can see the point of playing your way out of the Hall of Fame, but if you are, it's just like the debate in the Baseball Hall of Fame, Matt. He's like, oh, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but then 3 ballots later, he finally gets in. So technically, he's a third ballot or is he just a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I think with Russell Wilson's case in particular, we're just talking about Russell Wilson here. I think that because he was in some people's eyes and a lot of voters' eyes, and then people around the league's eyes, is a fringe Hall of Fame quarterback to begin with. There was a lot of doubters. There's a lot of people saying that, he's not the guy. He's not that guy. He's not going to be this guy. It was the Legion of Boom that carried him through all those years and stuff in the Super Bowl. But I mean, you and I watched the guy play. The guy that he was playing at a certain level and doing things that nobody else in the league was doing. I watched it personally as a Packers fan, what he would do to us in the playoffs and regular season games when we would play the Seahawks. I hated it. So there's that aspect of it that I think that in Russell Wilson's case, you go out and you do these things that you did last year, whether it's on the field, off the field, mixed up because you weren't winning on the field. That stuff off the field is going to be heightened. And I don't know how much of the voters look at that stuff, but I'm sure they remember it. They get a glimpse of it. But it's in Russell Wilson's case, because of there were so many people that were kind of like on the fence of him being that All-Pro, MVP, Hall of Fame candidate. And then for him to go and do this back-to-back seasons, and then everything else that he's doing, I think that's those people. That's where it goes. Definitely, for sure. You could think about it. Like for me, I was on the fence of if this dude, I didn't see him take that next step as far as to be that dominant MVP without that defense. But yeah, I just, in his case, it's a good discussion. It's a good discussion to have because of everything he's done to get here, the positives, and then you can look at the Legion of Boom. I mean, there's that conversation's there. That conversation's there to have. That was it Legion of Boom, or was it more of what Russell's doing? I think it was a mix of both. You had to have one to get the other, but still, it's a definite one of those conversations to have and fun to conversations.
You also had a great running game as well,
right?
With Marshall, except for in the Super Bowl where, on the 2-yard line,
you don't run.
Yeah, we're not going to bring that up. I mean, I guess my point is if you're a Hall of Fame player solidified your first 9 years, I don't see how year 10 and potentially year 11 can knock you out of that discussion. But it might. The voters might see it different. I don't vote, so I don't know. I don't know how they look at it. And again, I kind of correlate it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Everyone's, I disagree with this year's Hall of Fame ballot. I mean, how many years was Scott Rowland on the ballot, or was this his first year?
Man, I don't know.
All right. Hypothetically, let's just say you're telling me that Scott Rowland is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and yet Todd Helton had to wait. This was his fifth, sixth year on the ballot?
Yeah.
I mean, either you're a Hall of Famer or you're not. I mean, this first ballot stuff. I guess there's certain athletes who are first ballot Hall of Famers. I like Ken Griffey Jr. was a first ballot
Right.
Hall of Famer. There was going to be no question he was going to get the majority of the votes. A lot of people don't like, and I don't want to get into a whole Hall of Fame rant discussion because we have other things to talk about. But a lot of people don't like the baseball voting process. But I think it's one of the more exclusive. I like it because it's exclusive, but I disagreed with this year's vote. Todd Helton was so close, man. He only needed he only needed 2 more votes to get up to that 75th, and he would have been in. There would have been a 2-person Hall of Fame induction in Cooperstown this summer. So, I mean, either you're a Hall of Famer or you're not in my discussion. So if you're a Hall of Famer your first 9 years, I really don't see how playing below average or, not like those first 9 years can knock you out of that discussion, I guess.
Yeah. And I totally see that. Like in general, yeah, for sure. And I'm just looking at Russell Wilson's case when, there's some people that might think he was already on that fringe anyway. So they might not even think he's having a Hall of Fame career because of what he had with the defense. So yeah, I get both sides of it. I really do. Cause you can even use another example of I mean, I can't say Eli Manning because he won a couple Super Bowls, but like a quarterback that was really good, but never won the Super Bowl, or maybe got one like Trent Dilfer. I mean, that's one that maybe you can look at, one of those guys. He Hall of Famer, but there's all kinds of, maybe that's a bad example, but I'm trying to find like Donovan McNabb. Maybe he never won a Super Bowl though, but there's just so many examples that you can look at their career and their numbers, and then they didn't get this, they didn't get that, like or they did win a Super Bowl, but they didn't do all the other things to get in there. So that would be a great discussion to have, though, the Hall of Fame discussion. It always brings up a lot of questions about what are they looking at in the voting. But one thing though I know is don't let Kendrick Perkins near the MLB voting. No, don't let him near those guys.
Well, and you brought up those fringe guys when it comes time, guys like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Guys like Dak Prescott, guys like
Matt Stafford.
Well, yeah. I mean, winning a Super Bowl may have solidified him,
right?
But again, he had a bad year this year, but he was hurt. I mean, does that disqualify him all of a sudden?
Right. Yeah. See, there you go. Those. That's a great example.
And I'm about to bring this guy up here in a second. Guys like Lamar Jackson has an MVP, doesn't have, almost holds all the records for rushing statistics by a quarterback, doesn't have a Super Bowl, and he may be on the fringe. And speaking of Lamar Jackson, Matt, another year goes by without a long-term deal. This guy gets franchise tagged once again. He'll make $32.4 million, but he is allowed to talk to other teams. And I think I don't have the list in front of me because let's face it, Elevation 5280 Sports is, Matt, no preparation, all reaction. So we have that. Yeah, shooting from the hip is what we do here. And I mean, there was a list of, I think, 5 or 6 teams, Matt, that said they're not going to, they already came out and said, no, we're like,
right.
If you were in Denver, I mean, hypothetically, let's just say Trevor Siemian is still here, or, enter name here is still here. Anybody but Russell Wilson is still here. You would love this man on your football team. And I would go far as to say, as even with Russell Wilson here, you would probably make a move. You probably trade Russ for Lamar Jackson if you could.
Yeah. I think,
or is he just one of those guys where, again, on the fringe that you just don't want to touch for whatever reason? I don't know why this guy is not getting a long-term deal. Maybe they just know something we don't. I don't know. Injuries maybe be a part of it.
And the only thing that I can see what they're turned off on him by is, and I don't understand how this stuff works. It'd be nice to get somebody who like an agent or somebody. The way I understand it is it's him and his mother that handle all his deals.
Yeah,
and I think that might be the biggest issue right now. And the way I'm understanding this, from what I'm reading and seeing, it looks like that Baltimore, it pretty much looks like Baltimore is letting the league do their work for them, meaning Baltimore's probably more than likely going to sign whatever offer that he gets, because they still have that opportunity to sign whatever offer another team makes for him. So that's what it looks like. And he wants a fully guaranteed deal. Now, I'm not sure if it's 100% fully guaranteed or the majority of it is. I don't know the specifics, but I know he wants some ridiculous amount of that contract guaranteed. And again, they're dealing with him and his mother, the way I understand it, not an agent. So I think that's what the biggest holdup and hang up in all this is. And Baltimore is just like, hey, we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with that anymore. We want you here, I guess. It's weird. And then all those teams that came out and said no. And some people are calling it collusion. Like, I don't know. Maybe you can educate me on that. And maybe I don't. What collusion would that be? What are they colluding with? Who are they colluding for? Is it for Lamar Jackson? For the Ravens? Like, what is going on with that? And so that is what I don't understand about this whole deal is why nobody's offered him anything. And then there's the collusion aspect of it. So it's probably the funnest storyline right now in NFL free agent stuff going on right now. It's probably the funnest storyline.
Well, everyone, and I'm not going to answer that question without a lawyer or a dictionary present, but a lot of people are pissed off at the Cleveland Browns for giving Deshaun Watson that I want to say incredible contract, but I think a lot of people will call it disgusting contract.
Yeah.
5 years, Matt, $230 million, almost $45 million signing bonus. So he'll average $46 million a year, and 200 and it's all guaranteed. Every part of it's guaranteed. $230 million guarantee, 230 guaranteed at signing, Matt.
Yeah.
This season alone. Last season he was still on his Massage Envy rookie contract, which was he only made $402,000 last season, Matt. Kicking in this year, he'll turn 28 this year, Matt. Deshaun Watson will be making $46 million this season with the Cleveland Browns, and that's what a lot of people are mad at. That's what Baltimore is probably like, damn it.
Yeah.
So that's what they're looking at, and I don't know if Lamar Jackson deserves that money over Deshaun Watson. Lamar Jackson maybe went to a little bit less massage parlors, but maybe he went to a couple, and that's what Baltimore is scared of. I don't know. We're joking around, but I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know about collusion either. And so, and you look at the deal that Daniel Jones got with the New York Giants this offseason, Matt, 4 years, $160 million. I mean, this is another guy who they were scared to touch him with a 5-year, fifth-year rookie option, Matt. They were scared to touch him with that, and instead just kind of skip over that and give him a pretty big contract and place the franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, which is a little understandable. Running backs have a short shelf life. Plus, Saquon had a very good bounce back year this year. But, with that injury and being at the running back position, especially the way that Saquon runs, you're kind of scared to dish out a lot of money for that. So I understand the Giants picking a quarterback who, and again, speaking of bounce back season, Daniel Jones had a pretty nice season himself.
Right. Yeah. For them, you get to keep Daniel Jones, because it was always like, if we tag Jones, then Saquon's gone in a sense. So you get to keep Jones, and then you also get to keep Saquon, and you get to keep that semblance of a core together. That Daniel Jones, he gets a contract, and Lamar Jackson doesn't. Who's better? Lamar? Who would? I mean, I think we both take Lamar. I think we would. Right, Mike? I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I'm scared of the injuries too. And I don't know, he didn't play the last 5-6 games of the regular season. And that may have been because of injuries, but a lot of people were saying because he was pissed off that none of these discussions were being had. So that could have been it as well. I would take Daniel Jones if he was the only option. I mean, he had a pretty nice season this last season, but I'm not going to base it all on that. I would rather have Lamar, but the injuries do scare me a little bit. But if he was sitting out because he was mad and not because of injuries, that may change the discussion as well.
Right. And that's what I think that's what it looks like he was doing. He was sitting out because to show Baltimore how important he is to this franchise, MVP status almost. And then also that's like it just looked I felt like if they would have showed some kind of commitment to him, he would have played. Like I'll go out there and put my injury, my career, whatever it is on the line to get through the playoffs if you showed some kind of commitment to me. So I don't know, we don't know 100%, but I feel like that it's closer to that. Yeah, I just and the way he plays football, the way he runs the ball, the way he does that stuff too, you kind of gotta wonder. And that's the same kind of thing that you're thinking with, coming into the draft with a guy like Young, who's listed as what was he listed at 5'11", 2, or was it 6 foot? I can't remember what the heck he was listed as, but I want to say it was just a little over 200 pounds. And then you look at Tua Tagovailoa, which they just picked up an option on him. So these quarterbacks that are like Lamar Jackson, I'm curious to see if they're going to get these kind of big deals, because like you mentioned, the injury history or the potential of the injury history. Tua's already, I'm surprised. I'm curious how long he's going to last next season because of the concussions. And then Lamar Jackson, we already got the legs. So we got to look at guys like Young. We got to look at guys like Stroud that are coming into the league that aren't the biggest of the guy, or that even they play that way. They play that type of football. So this is going to be, I mean, are we seeing the change in the quarterbacks? The way we look at quarterbacks now are we kind of maybe looking, not looking at them like we used to, is investing all this money into them because of the way that they're playing? Like could we see a turn for that, Mike? That's real interesting you start to think about it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's especially the mobile quarterback. It's especially the guys who run. You're scared to touch because of the way they play. And I'm assuming as an owner or a GM or a head coach, you're like, dude, you can't continue to play this way. Like, we want to give you money, but the way you play is I mean, it's a short-term shelf life. And maybe that's the discussions had. And I don't know if you can go up to Lamar Jackson if you're Harbaugh and be like, hey man, this organization wants to keep you around for 10 more years, but you got to be a passer first. You cannot look to run almost on every single play. So maybe that's it too. Maybe he won't change the way he plays or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, we're not behind closed doors, Matt.
Right. And they've been talking about too. I've heard that he's been putting in some effort and working with that quarterback coach in where is it? I want to say USC maybe, and trying to be a better passer in between the numbers, and I think if he does that, but again, it's like it's you're just, what does that, it's that guaranteed money, man, Mike. It's that guaranteed money that's really, really messing with this right now. Thank you, Cleveland. Cleveland rocks.
There you go. Cleveland rocks. Go get massages. And another quarterback who got a contract deal this offseason, Matt, was your boy. Geno up in Seattle got a 3-year, $105 million contract, which maybe surprised some people, but I guess if you have him, you keep him. Had a very good season, comeback player of the year. Broke, actually, Russell Wilson's passing yards in a season record that he held for a few years there. So Geno also gets a contract extension, and Derek Carr gets a pretty lucrative 4-year deal with the New Orleans Saints as he leaves Oakland and officially signed with the Saints last week, Matt. So quarterbacks moved around, and guys like Daniel Jones and Geno stayed in place. Lamar gets franchise tags. So a couple moves here and there, but not too much on the quarterback front. As you mentioned, Tua got that fifth year option placed on him. So Miami's going to hang on to him for at least one more year, as they were actually one of the teams, Matt, that said no to Lamar Jackson. And so we'll see what happens there. But a couple highlighted names on the free. What would you do? I mean, would you take a look at Baker as a backup quarterback if you're a Denver Bronco fan? Yeah,
you got to look at him, and like you said, when Derek Carr signed with the Saints, that made Jameis Winston available too. Like right now, if you look at it, would you want Baker or Jameis here to back up Russell Wilson? Because that's kind of where my mind's going. My mind's going Jameis Winston here. I really loved him from Florida State. Number 1 draft pick.
Crab legs.
Loves to eat dubs, loves to eat crab legs, steal them out of the lunchroom, allegedly. And then you look at baby, I don't know why I called him baby, Baker Mayfield over there, you know, the Progressive, what insurance company does he? Well, I guess he doesn't do those anymore because he doesn't live in that house anymore.
Yeah, it's not
so
his house.
I think Los Angeles is going to lock up Baker. You know, I think they're going to lock him up because did you see Stafford's could be potentially on the trade block?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, you mentioned that. I'm wondering too there if. See, I see this whole quarterback stuff. Like, and if the Broncos were involved in the quarterback free agency this year, if they didn't have Russell Wilson, would you you could be in on David? You can be in on Derek Carr potentially. There's Jimmy Garoppolo too that's out there. He's not too shabby, you know. He's not the sexiest, but then you got Jameis Winston. You got Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of guys that you can come here, plug and play. I've seen people talking about your boy Carson Wentz, you know, and there's not a lot of there's some options there. So outside of Jameis and maybe Baker Mayfield, who else could you maybe see coming in here to back up Russell Wilson?
Well, here's a list. Here's the list of free agent quarterbacks, Matt. Obviously, Derek Carr off the list now. Carson Wentz, as you mentioned, Marcus Mariota is available as well as he was released by the Atlanta.
I like that one.
We mentioned the aforementioned Baker, and I remember when we were talking about Carolina, I said Sam Darnold's not the answer. Well, he is a free agent, so he is sitting without a team as we speak right now. You mentioned Jimmy Galapagos Islands, Teddy Bridgewater on that list. Case Keenum is on that list as well. Mason Rudolph, probably one of the younger guys. Sam Darnold's only 25. Baker, how about this, man? It seems like Baker's been playing for 12 years. He's only 27.
Wow.
So he's on that list as well. Rudolph, as I mentioned, on that list as well, 27 years old. Jacoby's Brisket is on that list as well. He just hit 30. He did decent filling in for Deshaun Watson this season. And people almost said, just keep him in. They
right.
Remember, we probably had that discussion
as
well. Joe Flacco, still in his prime right now, still entering the best years of his life. Football life. He's 38. Andy Dalton, obviously not on the Saints anymore. He's 35. Would you take a look at the Red Rifle?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and you look at it too. Like, what does Sean Payton want to do? Like we talked about. Like, could Sean Payton? That's why I think it's closer to a guy like a Jameis Winston, or a Marcus Mariota, or even a Jacoby Brissett, somebody with the same type of, I'm not going to say skills or abilities, but they can move around a little bit, move the pocket a little bit, and make plays. Because I think that's what Sean Payton's going to try to use when it comes to Russell Wilson's strengths. So if you're going to use that in your offense, you want to have your backup quarterback to be able to kind of do that. So that's what I'm thinking. He's looking at, Sean Payton might be looking at those type of 3 guys to do what Russell Wilson can do, but Baker can do that as well. But it's just, that's why, Mike, I really, man, if Russell Wilson doesn't come out of the gates hot firing, and we do have one of those guys back there, and you know, the Broncos do have one of those guys back there. How long, I know I don't want to be having this discussion right now, but how long do you think does, if Sean Payton has Jameis Winston here, and how long do you think you're going to give Russell Wilson to get right if he's not right immediately? If he doesn't come out of the gates doing Russell Wilson things or showing you that he's ready to go preseason, whatever it is, how long do you give him?
Well, number one, you hope that they actually play them in preseason this year.
I hope they do too.
Maybe that would have, I don't know, maybe a lot of the hindsight's always 2020, but a lot of maybe the kinks and bugs and whatever maybe would have been worked out in preseason last year. Who knows though? It obviously was the play calling. The number that entered my head, Matt, was maybe 10 to 12 games, since it is a 17 game season now, but maybe between 8 and 10, I think is more reasonable. And even that might be too long. I don't know. I don't know the patience of Sean Payton, but it seems like he's not a very patient guy when it comes to winning and good quarterback play. Obviously, he didn't really have to worry about that with Drew Brees, I guess. What's the number for you?
Man, I think it's quick. Well, it depends on if the expectations are playoffs. And I think if Russell Wilson has a great training camp, if he does play in the preseason and he's vibing and he's rolling, I think the expectations go as he goes. And I think Sean Payton will look at it and I think I feel like it could be soon, but I'm right with you that if they're out of the playoffs, that like 8 to 10 games, if they're out of I think you're going to have a pretty good idea of where you are in that. It might even be sooner than that. Pretty good idea of if you're in the playoffs or not, or if you can battle for a playoff spot. Because I think this team, only what they really want to do is be in a position to get into the playoffs, whether it's wild card or division, whatever it is. So I think, like you, it's at 8 to 10 games. But if this team, like, I don't know what this team's going to look like, Mike. I feel like this offensive line could look totally different. I feel like some of those receivers could be totally different. So if they go into the season, not revved up with these, if they don't spend a lot of money on the offensive line, it could be different. Sean Payton could be setting up to go into the season to lose. I don't think that's going to happen, but he could. So I'm with you, like that 8 to 10 game time frame. That should be enough time to really understand where you are in this in that playoff realm. And if you're not, then you're gonna pop smoke and Russ is done. Let's ride with Jameis and then let's not win any more games. I don't know, but how it's gonna break down, because Russ could get hurt too again. He could be hurt. So that's another aspect you got to think about as well, is having one of those guys behind him, because he could get hurt again. So not only could Russ play like crap, but he could get hurt again. So I'm thinking, like, I'm right there with you. It could be sooner, but I'm that 8 to 10 games.
Well, let me finish this quarterback rundown of free agents, and then we got to switch gears here for a minute. We mentioned Andy Dalton, Mike White, the Jets. He was backing up for a little bit against the Mom Slayer. Mm-hmm. He was backing up there for a little bit. Joe Flacco was in that mix as well. Kyle Allen, the old homie, played with Houston last season. Taylor Heineke is on the free agent list as well. Blaine Gabbert, not backing up Brady anymore. Gabbert's one of the older guys on this. Chase Daniel is now available. Nick Mullins. This is an intriguing name for me, Matt. Nick Mullins, the former 49er, was on Minnesota actually last season, but had a couple good games filling in there for the 49ers a few years. How about this name, Matt? Drew Lock is on that free agent.
I've heard, I've heard that.
Brandon Allen, another former homie, formerly of Cincinnati last year. We met Josh Johnson, who was on this team last season. He is a free agent. Nate Sudfeld, Nathan Peterman, Jeff Driscoll is available. Baby. Cooper Rush, Brett Rippon is a free agent, so you don't even really have him behind Russ as we speak right now. Taylor Huntley, who actually filled in admirably for Lamar Jackson the last couple of seasons. John Wolford, who filled in for Stafford for a few games.
The Rams, yeah.
Yeah, Philip Rocker, Trace McSorley, who did okay, coming in for Kyler Murray. We have Jarrett Stidham. He was on Vegas last season, which is going to be interesting for the Raiders to fill that void now. We have Bryce Perkins, Easton Stick. This is another name that's been coming up, Matt. Gardner Minshew.
I love Gardner Minshew.
Only 26 years old. So he's actually younger than Baker.
I love the Gardner Minshew. Man, that could be one. But I don't know. I don't know what Sean Payton thinks about him. See, everything that I've watched, Sean Payton, and if you've seen, I don't know if you've watched, the breakdowns or the rundowns, even during the season when Sean Payton wasn't even the Broncos coach, him talk about other players. That's a lot of things. I heard him talk about Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, compared him to Pat Mahomes. And if I didn't hear him talk about so glowingly about that kid, I could say that Sean Payton could look at a guy like Gardner Minshew as a backup, because I really think that Sean Payton wants to get a backup in here to just in case Russ gets. But I really think Sean Payton, if this season goes sideways, he's going to start to look at Caleb Williams and try to do everything he can to get that number 1 pick next season, because the Broncos get 1 pick back next year, and I think that there's things they can do to get those trades. Next year's going to be fun at the quarterback position, but I love Gardner Minshew, but I just don't know if the situation fits him here.
I mean, if you look at it, he does dress like Barrelman does in his normal day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
So he could fit in because a lot of people miss Barrelman, and that's what Gardner Minshew dresses like.
I would love him here, man. I wanted him here a couple seasons ago. I think it was before they went with Bridgewater, I think, when they tried to do. You saw what he did. He came in here and did that to you, and you went with Jacksonville. Remember that? What he came in here and did to the Broncos?
Yeah, so he's a name that's out there. So that
I love Gardner Minshew.
So that ties up the free agent tracker right now. And again, he's only 26. Some of the other guys that have been brought up, Baker's 27, and I don't know, Matt. Jacoby, as we mentioned, is 30. I don't know if you go that direction. Mariota is only 29.
I like Jameis and Mariota. Those are the ones I really like.
See, and Jameis is not even on this list, so he must still
he hasn't
be.
I don't think he's been released yet, has he?
I don't think he has been either. And maybe he likes that role. I don't know. Maybe he just sits on the bench eating crab legs, eating dubs. So maybe that's it.
That's so hilarious.
Maybe that's it. As we come down, Matt, we're already halfway through March. It's crazy. Time is flying. Selection Sunday, I think, is a week from today. Or is it today? It can't be today. I think it's next week, Matt. And
they're going through the I think there's some tournaments going up right now. So yeah, it'll probably be next week. I think
it is. But either way, Matt, we'll have March/April Madness here before you know it. And the brackets will be going crazy. Speaking of...
No, it is today.
It is today. Okay, that's what I thought. So Selection Sunday, we'll probably have all that up on all the socials, Matt. So make sure you like, subscribe, whatever. Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, all the goodness that comes with that. Speaking of March pushes, Matt, only about 16, 17 games left for the Nuggets and Avs, respectfully. As you may have saw drinking out of the championship cup, Matt, I don't know if I'll be getting another one this year. I mean, dropping games like flies, Matt. They got a couple games ago, they had a get right game against San Jose, shutting them out 6-0, and then you go and lose another one, and then you go to over. I don't want to say you should have went to overtime with Arizona, but you had no business beating Arizona in overtime. That needs to be a regular season. I understand, or regular regulation time.
Yeah.
I understand you still got 2 points out of it, but that needs to be another just obliterate team. You need to do that to those kinds of teams. Nathan McKinnon scored once again. Cale Makar, good to see him back on the ice, got the game-winning goal in overtime. So it was good to see that. This team, Matt, is scaring me just a little bit. And as you heard in our intro about 45 minutes ago, it was 55 minutes ago now, is, don't count out the Avs making another cup run. I've heard a lot of people say, I trust this team. Once it gets to the postseason, Matt, it's obviously a whole different season. Your record goes back down to 0, but it's still all back up to. It still all comes back down to matchups, Matt.
Yep.
And I go back to that Kings game. You needed that game if you want to move up in the standings. They lose 5-2. They needed to beat Seattle last week, Matt, on Sunday. They lose in overtime 3-2. They did get a point. Before that, they lose to Dallas 7-3. They lost to New Jersey 7-5. So those are the games that you needed to win. And the Avs right now, they're kind of fluctuating throughout the standings. Third place right now in the Central Division. So Dallas is at 85 points, Matt. Avs are only at 78. Vegas at 86 points. They lead the entire Western Conference. Kings right behind them at 85. Seattle at 80. Where the heck did the stupid Kraken come from?
Dude, I know.
You know?
I was watching that, and they were all over the place.
And guess who beat the Avs when they played Seattle? Good old Groovy. Good old Groovy. So this is it, man. I mean, these next couple of games, they I mean, again, if you want to move up in the standings, stay where you are. I don't know. I'm assuming they want to move up. They go on a Canadian run, run here. And I don't know why that turned into British, but they go to Montreal, they go to Toronto, they go to Ottawa, then they go to Detroit, back home on March 20th against Chicago. They go on a 3-game homestand. So they have a couple of maybe get right games, but they need to at least win, Matt, win 3 out of 4 on the road. If not, get at least I want to say 4 to 6 points on that road trip.
Yeah, like you want them to get points. They need to get points. They need to get wins. They need to get wins in regulation to get more points. And it's like with the Nuggets too, that and sure we'll get to the Nuggets here in a second, but the way they're losing these games with just those so many goals that they're giving them up. Is that bothering you, or are we waiting for these guys to get healthy, these guys to get better, the rotation, whatever it is that bothering? Because it's making me nervous. Just like you said, it's making me nervous.
Yeah, when you give up 2 touchdowns in 2 games, man, that's not good in hockey. 7 goals each, 14 goals in 2 games, Matt. You can't be doing that. I understand New Jersey is a good team. I understand Dallas is, again, one of the top teams in the West, but you can't be giving up 7 goals. Can't be doing it, especially with your starter and goalie out there. And again, the Avs won the cup last season in spite of goaltending. Darcy had his moments last season, right. and Papa G has his moments this season, but it's going to come down to the playoffs. This is a savvy team. The core has been together for 6 to 8 years now, Matt. They know what to do in the playoffs. They know once they get to the playoffs, it's a whole different. I mean, the ice is leveled. Let's face it, when you get to the playoffs. So, but it does depend on matchup. You see the Kings or somebody in the first round, I'm sweating a little bit.
That's what would be my next question for you. Like these first round matchups that could be these potential first round matchups, if they don't get more points, if they don't move up, like, does that work? Can they win these games?
I want to say they can, Matt. Sorry, I had listened.
Because if you get these guys back, like Landy's supposed to, is he going to be back for the playoffs, or is it going to be like the second series even if they get in? Because he's skating, he's skating, but that doesn't mean, like, what does that even mean?
I don't know. Maybe he's speed skating at Skate City. I don't know what that means. But
Makar is, I don't know. Every time I look, Makar's up, he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out, and I'm looking at it, and again, I'll default to you. Like, if they're in these at the bottom, and you got to play the Knights, who didn't they just get quick?
Yeah,
right. So you got to go play that team, and that team's always been gave you fits in the past. So why would you want to put yourself in that situation? The Stars, yeah, I don't. They got to move up. They got to start winning games in regulation, like you said. And the goalies got to start playing better, because you're waiting for everybody to get healthy and get right for the playoffs. But it's not going to be a long playoffs if you got to play the Golden Knights or the Stars. I'm
kind of nervous of everyone. And I get
it. I could see that too. The Wild, the Kings, and like you mentioned, the Kraken, the Oilers. I mean, they're sitting there 6, but you probably won't play them. I agree with you. That's kind of spooky there, man.
I mean, and Winnipeg's only a point behind them, so this fluctuates almost every day. And as I mentioned, I don't know why the Kings honestly traded Jonathan Quick, and they're right atop the Western Conference, unless it's just and then he goes to a Western Conference foe. I don't know. But yeah, I'm a little
Knights. Here, go ahead and take one of the best goalies of the last 10, 15 years.
It's funny because they traded him to Columbus.
Yeah.
And didn't even last a full 24 hours on Columbus. They flip him, And I feel bad. I don't know if you saw the fan. I think we talked about this. The fan that bought a Jonathan Quick Columbus jersey,
Yep.
then he got traded. Yeah, I feel bad for that guy because let's face it, hockey sweaters ain't cheap now.
No, they ain't.
They are one of the most expensive sports apparel that you could get right now. Speaking of, as we head to the roommates in the sack, and that would be your Denver Nuggets. And I mean, I'm again heading down the stretch, Matt, dropping games that you probably shouldn't, and they lose at home, or excuse me, they lose on the road to a pretty garbage team, Matt. The San Antonio Spurs are clearly tanking. Greg Popovich has zero interest in anything anymore except for looking like Kiefer Sutherland. I don't know, Matt. This is, 128 to 120. Not only did you lose to the Spurs, but you're giving up almost 130 points to the Spurs. I mean,
You gave
I
up
don't know, and I
42
don't know.
points in the second quarter in that game too.
Yeah, and then the game before, that's a game I was talking about at home against Chicago. That's a game that you have to win. You barely squeaked by Toronto. They had no business beating Toronto last Monday, Matt. They had zero business. Trailed basically the whole game until the last maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And then you at the beginning of the month, Matt, you get a good win against Memphis, and that was the game after John Morant almost Plaxico Bird himself. And speaking of that, he gets off with no charges, of course. And so, yeah, tonight they play Brooklyn. Brooklyn's actually been playing a whole lot better since they dumped their garbage on other teams. Dallas, I think, has only won 1 or 2 games since trading for Kyrie. And once again, Mr. Toothpick Man himself, Kevin Durant, is already out on a layup that he messed up his ankle. So he might not even beware of the big bad Suns, favorites in the West. Now, I told you when this trade happened, Matt, that why is everyone so scared? He's going to get hurt. He's not going to play. And once again, snaps like a toothpick.
I agree. I just the thing with the comparison with the Avs and Nuggets, they're kind of floundering right now. They're both kind of floundering, and they're dropping games that they shouldn't. But the difference is the Avs, they need those games because they need to get games and you get points. The Nuggets are kind of, this is what I look at the Nuggets. They're sitting up there like a bunch of fat cats, full. They've eaten their fill. They're up there just sitting there. And then you got these little scrappy, smaller cats just going up there and stealing their dinners, taking their lunch, taking their stuff and the Nuggets don't care because they're so fat and happy that they're sitting up there. That's what I think is kind of filling in here. There's a little bit of that, and then there's a little bit of whatever's going on with the MVP, Kendrick Perkins. I think that's getting to Nikola Jokic. I really do. Because that game when he played against the Spurs, a team like you mentioned that is tanking, a team that doesn't want to win. This Spurs team does not want to win basketball games, and they go out there and they beat you like a freaking drum. And that defensive effort from not only Nikola Jokic, but from all the other Nuggets just showed you how disinterested they are. And this is from the perspective of a team that is top of the conference. Like you mentioned, it's a Western Conference that there's nobody in this conference that is going to that the Nuggets are afraid of, that they're going to take over that top spot, that the Nuggets are worried about, that they have to play, because there's no big bad Lakers, there's no big bad Golden State Warriors, even though they're getting healthy, but still they're not that team. The Mavericks aren't any good. The Suns, the Mavericks don't play defense, and they, like you mentioned, they don't. The Western Conference is so wide open right now that these Denver Nuggets, for some reason, and I'm shocked that they're going through this, because I'm just looking at what it looks like to me as a fan and what I'm seeing on the court. They're playing crappy basketball and they're not locked in. And whether for whatever reason it is, because of their number one seed, if that's getting to their heads, if this Nikola Jokic BS with Kendrick Perkins is getting in his head, because this team goes as Nikola goes. That game that they lost to in I think it was Memphis, Nikola played like crap. And they got blown off the floor. And you can tell that the team was like, well, Nikola doesn't look like Nikola's ready to go, so we ain't going to roll either. I would think that Jamal Murray would be that guy to grab everybody else up when Nikola's down, because that's what other stars do. grabbed everybody else up, get them going. We got to get going. We got to get going through this. We got to win these games. There's something that's screwy right now with the mentality of this basketball team. And I'm thinking it's a little bit of both. The fat cats living high off the hog and the BS with Kendrick Perkins. But either way, it's got to get fixed because you can't go into this. I'm still a believer that this is the best team in the West, that they're going to come out of the West, but you can't play crappy basketball like this. You just can't do it.
And maybe it's just a sign of the season, Matt, because the aforementioned Phoenix Suns drop to the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings having a very good season. The Milwaukee Bucks lose to the Warriors, so maybe it's just that time. Everyone's getting tired. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It could be
just dragging along. I mean, let's face it. The Orlando Magic beat the Miami Heat yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the Clippers beat the Knicks. I don't know.
Boston was going on a roll there where they lost 3 in a row badly.
Yeah, so maybe it's just that stretch of the season where the good teams are just looking a little sluggish. I don't know what it is, but what I hate to see, Matt, is who's in the number 9 spot in the West. I'm not even going to say the name. It's Voldemort. I'm not even going to say the name, but they have slowly crept up, Matt, almost a 500 record now in the Western Conference. So tonight's game, Matt, or today's game, it's actually a 1:30 local time game. So it's going to be on mid-afternoon, a matinee, as they call it, matinee. So
get it? Ayo.
There you go. So yeah, they face Brooklyn today. They'll go to Toronto on Tuesday, at Detroit, at the Knicks, at Brooklyn again next Sunday. So they go on a pretty big Eastern Conference swing road trip, Matt. Toronto, Detroit, Knicks, and once again Brooklyn. Toronto is you gotta go 3-1 on this road trip. You got to, and then they don't even come home until the 25th of March. Matt, so after today, they are on the road for 2 weeks, and then they play at Washington on the 22nd. So I guess on a 5-game road trip, you got to go 4-1 at the very least, 3-2 at the very least, and I don't even want to see 3-2.
They got to get outside of Detroit. You know, Toronto's still fighting, and they're still a good basketball team, but outside of Detroit, that's a death row of teams in the Eastern Conference that are playing really well. You see what the Knicks are doing? I mean, it's going to be tough, but I agree 100%. You're the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. You got the reigning MVP, back-to-back MVP on your team. You have to come out of that at least 3-2. 4-1 would be great, but at least 3-2. You cannot lose to Toronto and Detroit. Those are the 2 games you have to get. You got to get this. If you get this one in Brooklyn tonight or today, I mean, that's a tough road ahead to go in there playing the crappy basketball that you have been playing. So I hope they get better tonight. But man, that's a tough little Eastern roadie there. But I agree, they got to come out of that at least 3-2. At least 3-2.
Yeah, 2 weeks on the road is going to be tough. So. I don't want to say we're not expecting much, especially after the sluggish games they're coming off of, but you got to get the win today at home to kind of kick off things in the right direction. Got
to get right.
You got to, especially coming off 2 bad losses, Matt. 2 bad losses, Bulls and Spurs. I mean, the Bulls are still fighting too, and as we mentioned weeks prior, they've on paper they have a pretty good team. You know, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. They both went off yesterday against Houston. Let's face it. I know it's Houston. Take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But you know, Zach LaVine at 34, DeRozan at 27 in that game. So those guys are balling. They're trying to creep up the Eastern Conference as well. Same with Toronto. So both of those teams are fighting. But especially the Bulls at home, man. I don't get it's the Spurs who are absolute garbage.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's a dog crap loss.
I don't think the Nuggets had the lead the entire game.
It's a bad loss. Like, excuse me. You had like I mentioned in the first, they're up like I think it's almost 20 points they were up, and then they give up 40 freaking points in the quarter to the freaking Spurs, man. That was, oh my God. I couldn't believe, like, you don't do that. Yeah, it was just gross.
I said they didn't have a lead the whole game. I meant getting the updates after each quarter. They never led.
after they lost that double digit, they didn't have a lead. They didn't get it back.
So, yeah, that was kind of filth, disgusting.
Gross.
So there you go. They need to
Just
get right
gross.
today, kick off the road trip. All right, Matt, before we get on here, we're bringing back a pretty fun segment. It is called This Date in Jerseys.
It's now time for This Date in Jersey, where we pick the best athletes who wore the number of the day.
Well, the number's 555-905.
For God's sake, just give me the damn number!
I choose business ethics.
There's 7. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, a 3, a 5, a 4, a 3, 2, a 2, 4, 6, 4, 2, 4, 7, 5, 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.
All right, Matt. This Date in Jersey is back. And if you're new to listening to us for the last couple of years, we picked the top 5 athletes who wore number of the day. So today is 12. Maybe easy in some of your books, but we have 5 athletes, Matt, we go through and kind of give their career trajectories and stuff like that. But we're kicking it off with number 5, Matt. This guy was a pretty successful NFL quarterback, and it is number 12 in the program's number 1 in some people's hearts, and that is Randall Cunningham. Matt, he played for about 16 years in the NFL. Started with the Philadelphia Eagles, 85-95, Minnesota, 97-99, Dallas, tail end of his career in 2000, Baltimore, 2001. I don't know did he get a ring with Baltimore in 2001? It doesn't say, so maybe not.
I don't know. He should have.
So he was an NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 92, first team All-Pro in 98, second team All-Pro 88 and 92, 4-time Pro Bowler, Matt, NFL passing leader with that. I want to say that it was the greatest show on turf, but it was the 1998 Minnesota Vikings, in which a lot of people thought that Broncos team was going to be playing those 98 Vikings, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, but they did not. He's in the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame, and his number 12 is retired by the UNLV Rebels. He's also in the College Football Hall of Fame through 207 touchdowns in the NFL, 29,000 passing yards, and he also almost added 5,000 rushing yards to his resume, Matt.
My most memorable season, that 98 season, watching him throw the ball to Randy Moss was so freaking cool. And I remember the things he did in Philly, and but my most memorable times of Randall Cunningham was what he did, and also playing him. I was, remember that game as a PlayStation football game, like it was 90. It was I can't remember, but he was awesome on that game too. But anyway, most memorable time for Randall Cunningham was throwing bombs to freaking Randy Moss in that 98 season.
And as I mentioned, a lot of people thought that the Broncos would be playing those 98.
That would have been a fun game.
Vikings. So, yeah, I mean, definitely deserved to be on this list. There was a lot of, a couple 3 names that we were discussing, but we decided to go with good old Mr. Randall Cunningham. Number 4 on the list, Matt. This man was the king of short shorts, and that is number 12, John Stockton, formerly of the Utah Jazz, 10-time NBA All-Star. Matt played his entire career with the Utah Jazz, almost for 20 years, man. 84 to 03. We remember the back-to-back NBA Finals, the Utah Jazz against the Chicago Bulls, and we all know what happened after that. 2-time NBA All-First Team, 94-95. 6-time All-NBA Second Team. 3-time All-NBA Third Team. 9-time assist leader, Matt. 2-time NBA steals leader. And obviously, he is on the NBA 50th and 75th anniversary teams. Of course, his number 12 is retired by the Jazz and also the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Averaged 13 points a game, Matt, 19,000 points, 15,000 assists, 3,000 steals. I mean, this man almost did it all. He averaged a double-double in his career, points and assists.
One of the greatest point guards of all time. I mean, Michael Jordan loved this dude, and at one point, I remember it was Larry Bird, John Stockton, and Pistol Pete Maravich were the greatest white guys to ever play basketball at that time. And I remember, in the 90s, just being enamored, not only with the shorts, but the way that dude played basketball, and he passed the ball to Karl Malone and the things that he did. Yeah, I mean, just a freaking tremendous point guard and tremendous basketball player.
Yeah, those NBA. I mean, I'm not sorry that he never won an NBA championship, because they ran into the Bulls back-to-back years. So it is what it is. And John Stockton's still one of the greatest to ever do it. Lace up number 12. All right, number 3 on the list, Matt, is your boy coming off the mushroom and acid convention here in Denver, and then going on his little mud hut retreat in the darkness. Mm-hmm. And that is number 12, Aaron Rodgers, as he's been in talks now, maybe a future Jet. Hasn't happened yet, but obviously spent his entire career so far with the Green Bay Packers, 05 to right now. The only active player on our list is Aaron Rodgers. Obviously won a Super Bowl way back. What is that, man? Super Bowl, I want to say 40. What was that?
2009?
Yeah. He's a 4-time MVP. I can't read Roman numerals this early, so sorry for that. But yeah, I mean, he's a 4-time NFL MVP, Matt. Fresh off one just 2 years ago. He won back-to-back MVPs in 20 and 21. First team All-Pro, 10-time Pro Bowler, Matt. 4-time NFL passing rating leader, 2-time NFL passing touchdown leader. I mean, this guy has almost done it all, and still going, still pumping them tires. 475 touchdowns as opposed to only 105 interceptions, Matt. That's pretty incredible. 59,000 passing yards, has a passer rating of 103, rushing yards 3,400, and how about this? 35 rushing touchdowns, and about 34 of those against the Bears.
Yep, he's number 3 on my quarterback Mount Rushmore list. Probably one of the greatest throwers of the football outside of John Elway. And he came like just the spoiledness of the Green Bay Packer fans to have Brett Favre and then have this guy. It's a shame he didn't win more Super Bowls. I don't know if he's ever going to win any more Super Bowls, but it's a damn shame he didn't win more. And probably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Probably could have been looked at the greatest quarterback of all time if he would have won a couple more Super Bowls. But it was not to be. I can't see him in a Jets uniform.
Yeah, Brett Favre did it.
I know Favre freaking did it. That's why I'm like, I don't want to see this guy in a Jets uniform, but I'd rather see him in a Jets uniform than a Raiders jersey. Let's just say that.
All right, number 2 on the list, Matt. Another quarterback, and we know him on one of the NFL shows before each and every game on Fox, right? Or CBS? I don't remember.
Fox.
But either way, it is number 12, Terry Bradshaw, 4-time Super Bowl champion. Only played 13 years in the league, man, and won. How about this? Only playing 13 years and winning championships four times in those years. So 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time 2-time Super Bowl MVP. And he was an NFL MVP in 78, 3-time Pro Bowler. How about that, man? Only a 3-time Pro Bowler for how much this dude has won. He's obviously in the Steelers Hall of Fame. His number 12 is retired. Pittsburgh Hall of Fame. I guess the state has their own, or the city has their own Hall of Fame. He's in obviously the NFL Hall of Fame and also the College Football Hall of Fame. 27,000 passing yards doesn't seem like a lot, but it was back then. And so, his TD to touchdown ratio isn't the greatest, man. I mean, he was a gunslinger. 212 TDs to 210 interceptions. So, Terry Bradshaw, 4-time Super Bowl winner.
It's weird that he never really gets put into that greatest quarterback of all time convo. And he's got all the freaking numbers. I just wonder if it's that defense that again, this could be the Russell Wilson comparison, with that defense. Is more defense running game? It's curious.
He had Franco Harris.
He had Franco Harris, that defense. I mean, it's interesting. How come he's not ever mentioned up there as one of the GOATs?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty interesting. But when it comes to number 12s, he's one of the GOATs. At least we put him on that pedestal. When maybe doesn't get the respect that other sports entities do. All right, number 1, you may have guessed it. It is him, Matt. It is him. It is number 12, Tom Brady. He doesn't need a picture of him in his number 12 jersey because he's got 7 rings, Matt. And if you look at his left pinky and his left thumb, those are Eli Manning.
Yep.
And Patrick Mahomes is the other thumb. So that's why he doesn't have a ring on those fingers. But I mean, what else can you say about Tom Brady? Now retired? ... Question mark. 7-time Super Bowl champion. I mean, this dude did it all. 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time NFL MVP, 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year. I'm not going to go through all this because it's just absolutely it's crazy. 23 years in the league. Matt was a Pro Bowler for 15 of those years. Absolutely crazy. And there you go. Is that a better one if you're watching? And
that lipstick looks great on him.
Yeah, I mean, 12,000 passing attempts, 7,700 passing completions, 64%, 649 touchdowns as opposed to only 212 interceptions, 89,000 passing yards. Matt, he did it all. He did it all except hold his marriage together, but that might be repaired this offseason.
Hey.
He's taking a year off before he goes to Fox. He's going to be – I feel bad for Greg Olson. Greg Olson is either going to be – I mean, Greg Olson gets one more year as the number 1 color analyst on the Fox team. And I like Greg Olson as a color analyst, but –
Me too.
Tom Brady is going to be making more in his Fox deal, Matt, than he did his entire NFL career. That is just stupid.
Oh, my gosh. I'm the GOAT. Like, what else can you say about him as being the GOAT? There was a discussion I saw. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how Peyton Manning's the greatest regular season quarterback of all time, and then Joe Montana is the greatest playoff Super Bowl quarterback of all time. And I could not believe that was said. Maybe I'll give Peyton Manning, but what Tom Brady has done in the playoffs, and how he did it in the playoffs, and how he was there in the playoffs, and what he did in the Super Bowl. Like you mentioned, you said Eli Manning, the pinky and the thumb, and then the other thumb are Mahomes and Eli Manning. And I think Patrick Mahomes could be the only quarterback that with the trajectory right now, because he already has the rings, because he has the appearances, that could get to where Tom Brady is. I would say Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow don't have any rings. Pat Mahomes has a ring, so we'll put a pin in that. But right now, I mean, it's Tom Brady's the GOAT, right? Greatest of all time quarterback ever?
Yeah, and a lot of people obviously don't put him in that discussion because of Deflategate, because of the cheating in New England, maybe. And only 3 seasons in Tampa, almost kind of reversed his image to like this cool, fun guy. Maybe it was the sun, maybe it was the vitamin D that he was getting on the beach. I don't know. But he kind of redid his image, maybe escaping the Belichick, Death McHood or Darth Hoodie stranglehold that New England had on him, kind of freed him up to be kind of a cool, fun-loving guy. I don't know. And maybe we'll see what his persona on Fox is. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people hate A-Rod, but he kind of revived his image being on all of these baseball shows and kind of being a cool guy, I mean, he couldn't hold on to J-Lo, but I mean, that's the one blemish on his career. But let's face it, a lot of these guys go to TV and kind of revitalize what people think of them. And now you look at A-Rod, and I'm sorry I'm using so much baseball comparisons, but, he came out, said sorry for using steroids. Now everyone loves him. Again, except for losing J-Lo, because I'm sure a lot of guys are pissed at him for that, just like Tom Brady losing Gisele. I don't know.
Damn Ben Affleck, man, I tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that's some insurance company, I'll tell you. Anyway,
Affleck.
as we I digress. But as we get on out of here, Matt, that was our re-bringing back the old This Dayton jerseys. Again, if you missed it, we had number 5, Randall Cunningham, number 4, John Stockton, number 3, speaking of A-Rod, Aaron Rodgers, number 2, Terry Bradshaw, and number 1 is Tom Brady. But to answer your question, Matt, you got him. And you mentioned maybe Peyton Manning, greatest regular season quarterback, Joe Montana, regular. Tom Brady did it in both the regular season and the playoffs. I don't know what these dudes are talking about.
I don't get it either.
And I love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning and John Elway will always be my top 2 quarterbacks, but 7 rings doesn't happen for no reason.
Right. And the way he did it, and I mean, you can say Belichick, you can say all you want about the defense with like the first year. He did it with no-name receivers.
He carried a lot of those Patriots teams, defense or not.
Right. It was Tom Brady. It was always freaking Brady. Always.
So whatever acid and mushroom you're doing with Aaron Rodgers at these conventions, stop it.
Stop it.
They're not helping anything.
It's not helping. Did you see Aaron Rodgers here with Brandon Marshall? It's going all over this morning.
Yeah.
Interview.
Maybe I don't know. Aaron Rodgers has some ties to Colorado. I mean, they got the good cush here, Matt. I don't know why.
They do got the good cush. I think Aaron Rodgers retires and then comes in here and lives with and starts a commune with Jake Plummer. Calling it now.
Jake's out in the forest growing this stuff.
He's got a medicinal mushroom farm, yeah. So why not? It's perfect.
There you go. They go into business.
See, we didn't need Hackett to get Rodgers here. We needed Jake Plummer.
Yeah, just put it as a plumbing front. You call it Jake's Plumbing. and Jake Plummer and Aaron Rodgers show up in a van delivering mushrooms. I mean, it's perfect.
Perfect. It's right there. It's right there. I mean, yeah, they really screwed that whole thing up. The Broncos did by bringing Hackett in, thinking they were going to get Rodgers. All they needed was mushrooms and Plummer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty perfect situation. But before we get kicked off the internets, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all for tuning in, listening. This will be posted back up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, the audio version of this. So a lot of the video aspects, you will have missed, but it is still saved and posted on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can go back and rewatch it all as well. Make sure you like the Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook, and make sure you like Elevation 5280 Sports on Facebook. All the breaking news that goes on will be posted on all platforms and on Instagram as well at RockyMTNSN, all on Twitter as well, RM Sports Network, at Matt Mascarenas1, at Michael Stone, or at 5280 Sports Radio. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and that is just like our Twitter handle, at 5280 Sports Radio. And if you want to you can always interact after the video is posted, after everything's posted. You can leave a comment. We'll get back to you. But that is going to do it for us this week. Hope you all have a great week. We need the Nugs and Avs to,
lock it in, baby. Lock it in.
Lack of a better term, pull their heads out of their back area.
Pull it out. Let's go.
There you go. But for Matt Mascarenas, I am Michael Spill. We will talk to you next week.